about consumer math, which is basically anything to do with money. So we're going to be talking about tax, tip, discount, markup, and the final price or the sale price. So let's just go over what each of these means. Sales tax is a fee that is added to the price of goods or services. So on top of whatever you have to pay for, you add in sales tax. Tip is kind of the same, except it's paid for good service. So it's an additional amount paid for service. So that's paid directly to a person because they did good work for you. Either way, you're adding that amount. A markup is also added. It's the amount a company adds or increases. Actually, let's say increases. Increases the price of a product to earn a profit. They buy something for $20, they sell it for $25. The markup is that $5 that they're making. They're increasing the price to make a profit. So again, that's actually added also. All three of these are added. Discount is the only one that's going to be subtracted. That's the amount it costs. The amount the cost of an item is reduced by, or the amount saved. So this is the only one that we're going to subtract. A discount lowers the price. So the selling price, sale price, final price, total price, all of those mean the same thing. They're the price of an item after a discount is subtracted or a tax, tip, or markup is added. There's going to be two different ways I'm going to show you how to solve these. One is a proportion. So that's setting up two fractions on either side. You cross multiply and then solve for whichever one you don't know. Or using Desmos, actually we can also just use the percent and multiply it by the original price. Really it depends on whatever you're comfortable with. You're going to need to be familiar with proportions, but personally I think strategy number 2 is easier just because it's all calculator work. Alright, so here we're just going to be calculating the amount or just the tax, tip, discount, or markup, not looking at the sale price or final price yet. Alright, so Angel wants a book that costs $19.67. If the tax rate is 6%, find the amount of tax Angel will need to pay using a proportion. So we're just finding the amount of tax. Reading in this unit is really careful. Reading carefully in this unit is really important because most of the time you know the math skill here. You just need to understand what they're looking for, if they're looking for the final price or just the amount of tax. So here we're just looking for the amount of tax. We're going to set up our proportion. Every time we set up the proportion, we're going to put the percent over 100. So we're going to put 6% over 100. And we're trying to find the tax here, so we don't know this number. That's going to be our X. The original price goes on the bottom. That's $19.67. So we're going to cross multiply here. We multiply 19.67 times 6. So that equals 118.02. And then on the other side of the equation, we're going to multiply 100 times x. We can't really do anything with that, so we just write 100x. Our last step is dividing by 100. Divide on both sides by 100 and find out that the tax is 1.1802. We're talking about money, so we're always going to round to the hundredths place. We're leaving that at the hundredths, which is the second number after the decimal. So Angel will have to pay $1.18 in tax. Oops. Alright. Nope, still not doing it. So that is strategy number 1, where you set a proportion, cross multiply, and solve for your variable. Strategy number 2 is really just using the percent directly and multiplying it by the original price. So Target is selling a new bike for $124.89. Brian has a 20% off coupon. How much will he save? That is just looking for the discount amount. We're going to do 20% of $124.89. So we type 20%. Automatically the word of pops in there, and it's going to multiply those for us. So the final amount that he saves is 24. Yes, I'm going to try that again. 24.97. And we have an 8 in the thousandths place. So we want to round to the hundredths place here. We want to end off with just two numbers after the decimal here. So we want to end with this number, but we have an 8 in the next decimal place. So we're going to round this up to an 8. So Brian's going to save $24.98. Number 3, we're going to use a proportion for this one just because I want to show you one more time. Best Buy purchases Kindle for $155. Find the markup. Best Buy will apply if they want to sell it for 15% over the original price. So we're going to set up our two fractions, 15% over 100 and x over 155. And we'll cross multiply 15 times 155. And I'm not going to show this step where we write out the equation. We know we're just going to end up dividing by this 100. So I'm just going to do that step right away. We find out that they're going to increase the price. Whenever I move back from the calculator over to the smartboard, it's just really laggy. They're going to increase the price by $23.25. That's how much profit Best Buy would make. All right, one more. We're going to look for how much tip he's going to give his barber. Jameson got a new haircut that cost $39. He wants to give his barber a 15% tip. How much tip will he give his barber? I'm going to type 15%. Actually, let's set it up here. 15% of $39. 15% of 39 equals $5.85. So Jameson is going to tip $5.85 here. All right, so all of those problems were just finding the amount. Now we're going to look at finding the total. So that's the total bill, sale price, total cost, selling price. All of those mean the same thing. The price after the discount, tax, tip, or markup. Ben bought 3 shirts for $47 each. If the sales tax is 5%, how much will Ben spend in total? So there's actually an added step on this one. If he's buying 3 shirts and they're each $47, we have to do 3 times 47 to figure out the cost of all 3 shirts, which is really $141. I'm actually going to choose to not set up a proportion on this one, even though the proportion is actually set up for us there. I prefer to use this strategy, so I'm going to use that. We know that the 3 shirts are going to cost $141, so we're going to find 5% of 141. So that's $7.05. That's the amount of tax. 141 was the original price. We add those together, and our final price is $148.05. So he has to pay for the 3 shirts plus the tax. That's our total price. All right, the Chimborazo family, sorry Lee if I pronounced that wrong, went out to dinner, and their total bill was $84.50. They left a 15% tip. How much was their meal in total? So we're going to set this up the same way. Again, if you're more comfortable with a proportion, use a proportion. I just feel very comfortable using Desmos on this. So 15% of $84.50. That's going to tell us the amount that we're going to tip. $12.67, but then the next number is a 5, so this is going to round up to an 8. So $12.68 is our tip. $84.50 was the price of the meal. We have to pay for both of those. This this is an easy way to do it in just one step. All of that is in one line in the calculator. Add those together and find out that the meal costs $97.18. The video game Sophia bought at a 20% off sale was originally priced at $65. What's the sale price? Sale price means the final price after that discount. So we want to know how much she's going to save first. Let's find 20% of $65. So that's $13. That's our discount. The original cost was $65. This is the only time we're going to subtract. When we have a discount, we're saving that amount, so the price is going down by $13. So we're subtracting to find out that the price of the video game is going to end up at $52. Henry wants to buy a new Commanders jersey at Fanatics.com. Fanatics.com originally paid $63 for the jersey. What's the selling price of the jersey if the store marks up the price by 30%? So we're marking up the price. We're increasing the price by that 30%. So first off, let's find 30% of 63. So we're increasing the price, or Fanatics.com is increasing the price by $18.90. It originally cost $63. Now we can add those together and find the final price is $81.90. So that's the price that you'll buy it for. This is the price that they bought it for. This is their profit or the markup. So you can see reading here is going to be very important. You need to understand that they're looking for the selling price here, not just the markup amount. You're going to need to find the markup amount to find the selling price. So that's what we're going to talk about in these next 4 examples. Just what's the question asking? Alex went out to Outback Steakhouse for dinner and wanted to tip his waitress 20%. How much will Alex tip if their bill came out to $75.36? How much will Alex tip? So it's not looking for a percent, not looking for the total. We're just looking for the amount that we're going to tip. Fabian, I'm realizing I edited this problem but didn't change this word. That's supposed to say discount. Fabian is a car salesman and receives a 12% discount when he buys a car. How much money will he save? How much will he save if the car costs $25,700? So we're not looking for the final price or the sale price. We're looking for how much he's going to save. That is just the discount amount. It's not looking for a percentage. It's just looking for the amount that we save. Elizabeth went to the mall and bought 3 shirts, 2 pairs of pants for a total of $95.75. If she had to pay $8 in sales tax, what percent will she pay in tax? So we're actually told the tax. We could find the total, but that's not what it's looking for. It's saying what percent will she pay in tax? So this is one of the times when I think a proportion actually is really useful. If you're looking for the percent, we know we put the percent over 100, but if we don't know the percent, then you would put X over 100 and 8 over the original price. So this is the one time where I think a proportion might be handy because we know we're looking for the percentage. We know how to set up this proportion where you put the percent over 100. That's the number we don't know. That's why that's the X. Natalie went to the Apple Store and bought accessories for her phone and laptop. She spent $105.60 and had to pay 5% sales tax. How much did she spend at the Apple Store? So this is kind of vague, but it's just saying how much did she spend altogether. She spent that plus tax. That is a total. We need to find the tax, but that's not what it's looking for. It's looking for how much she spent altogether. This last example, we're going to mix a couple of these together. Julia went to the store and her items totaled $158.97. The day she went, they were having a 25% off their entire purchase sale. After the discount, she paid 5.5% tax. How much did Julia end up spending in total? So you have to find the final price after a discount and sales tax. And this part is really important. It's after the discount. So we're going to find the discount, subtract it, subtract the discount, then use that new price to calculate the tax. So our first step is finding 25% of $158.97. Oops, I did not do that right. 25% of that original price is $39.74. We're going to keep that as a 4 because the next number is a 2, so it doesn't round up. It's just going to stay as a 4. Now we have to subtract that. So we're going to subtract the original price minus the discount amount. So I prefer to do as little work as possible. So I'm just going to write this. This is going to feel a little bit wrong, but oops, that's not where I want to put it. But just like I was adding before, I could do it in one line here. I'm going to subtract 158.97, and it's going to give you a negative version. We're subtracting these really in the wrong order. Maybe you don't want to do it this way. Maybe you actually want to type these two numbers in individually, but I just want to keep this in and do as little as possible. So I'm showing that subtraction in the wrong order. So it ends up with a negative version of the correct answer. So really, it's going to be a positive 119.23. Again, rounding here, we're going to round that 2 up to a 3 because the next number is a 5 or bigger. So after the discount, it's $119.23. Now we're going to use that price to find our tax. It's 5.5% of $119.23. I mean, if I want to continue that pattern, I could actually even just keep all that in there. I feel like that's going to get too messy. So I'm just going to do 5.5% of 119.23. So the tax is $655. But since that is a 5, next number is a 7, this is going to jump up to a 6. We're rounding up because the following number is a 5 or bigger. This thousandths place is a 5 or bigger. So we really have to pay $6.56 in tax. Now we can do our last step. We're going to add that tax to the original price after our discount, which is that 119.23. We're adding this price. We're not using this one anymore because we got that discount. We're using this plus the tax. And our final price is $125.79. Again, that's an 8 right now, but since the next number is a 5 or bigger, it rounds up to a 9. That's our final price after the discount and the tax. All right, I hope this helps.